Okay. Let's make sure everything's working. Let's see, that's... Oh, would you look at that? Even though I said it's a TFT, it changes to League of Legends. Whatever. Like, I'm just getting into the habit of just manually changing it every time, even though I manually change it before the stream anyway. But, oh, what happened? Okay, there, and then YouTube. I don't see my stream. Hello? Oh, okay. Okay, that looks fine. What? Why does it say here that I'm offline? Then the actual Twitch and the actual YouTube streams are fine. That's not gonna get annoying. Okay, I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. So I've been anxious as ever, but today I have a pretty interesting content idea. I've been a little too uncomfortable with everything I do getting yoinked, so I'm gonna do something that, if it does get yoinked, it is like impossible for it not to be directed back at me. It's a content idea I've had for a while, uh, and I just kind of didn't have the right idea as to how to approach it. And even now, I still have no idea uh, how to organize it, besides just like me rambling on stream and using the recordings as my organization. But what I wanted to do was to uh go through all the I mean, okay, so what this is me designing a bunch of like new TFT units based on League of Legends and all the TFT units of the past. There's also like Arcane, and there's like dragons and stuff. And we'll see the extent to which I explore the not League of Legends stuff. But what I had in mind was to go through each of these champions and try to come up with some more kits for different possible iterations within TFT. So the primary rules I'm going to operate under is that if so, there's in TFT there is one, two, three, four, and five costs like in a standard set. I don't know how regular six costs are going to be, but I'm not going to include that. But for each champion, I'm going to go through and try to, if there is not already one, I will make a kit for the corresponding cost. So if there is like a one, two, four, five, but there's no three cost, I will make the three cost. If there is only like a four cost and a five cost, I will make the one, two, and three cost, etc. And then in a situation where that champion already has all five costs covered, I'll just pick one personally, and then I'll just do that. So every champion will get at least one. If there's already all five, then I will just choose it. If not, I will just do whatever has not been done. So, I mean, there's no champion that has not been in TFT at this point, so I'm not gonna. There's no champion I'd be doing five for, but there are a bunch that I would probably be doing at least like four for, and then some at like three, two, one. So yeah, and okay, like, and how I'm gonna just explain it is just like a I honestly have no idea. I'm just going to just talk about it and try to on stream make it as visually like and audibly like clear what my idea is. Because I don't have like it's not like a picture. I can't like take a picture. I can't like make the thing in TFT like it's not like a comp guide where like you can just make a Reddit post with words and then pictures. Here I have to go a little bit more into like detail. So I think most of this is just going to be audios, like me talking about it, and I'll try to create the proper visual aids that would make it clear if it's not like super clear. Uh, I still don't know, and because I don't have like a clear idea, it's been a bit stressful to try to approach. But this is obviously going to be my content, so uh, at least I don't have to like it's going to be like my own unique stuff. I don't currently work for Riot, uh, but so yeah, currently as in I want to, but I don't. And then the other thing is that sorry, my brain is just a little, also slow as ever. So yeah, uh, I know this content has existed. And people have obviously come up with the idea of custom TFT units, sets, and whatever. Uh, I think it was a bit more popular before. Uh, Riot had some. They said something about like they can't like really look at that because they don't want to get like sued or whatever. Which I mean, whatever legal stuff like, it's like fine. This is just like a custom like a fan made thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sue or anything. I don't really care. Uh, Also, because Riot works ahead, if I end up predicting something, like I don't, I mean, like the implications or whatever, I don't really care. If like it could just be a coincidence. Uh, if something does get taken from here, which I don't actually have a know, I don't have a way of knowing. I mean, I don't really care. Just like a for like a personal like pride slash ego thing, I would like some kind of acknowledgement. Just because I've been saying, having to deal with stuff where I don't actually know. Like, obviously, I get a lot of praise for the stuff that I do, and that's made me really happy. But then a lot of the stuff that I continue to do, uh, I get like I get discouraged when I work hard for something and then someone else just takes the credit for it. That's been happening a lot. So yeah, this is gonna be something that is just for uh personal fun thing, and hopefully there will be others who uh maybe have this a similar interest and then can join me on future streams. If this becomes a bigger thing than I mean than it is currently, which is just me, then I mean I'd be happy. I mean also it'll take a very long time to actually go through everything, so this will be hopefully be a recurring thing if there's enough support for it. Because yeah, it's gonna be a lot. So the framework I have to base off of is just, I mean, but apart from like random stuff that like is said on Warthog, it's just these. So what originally inspired me to do this, like in this way specifically, was the first one, and they released the second one some time ago. But yeah, the first one was like a year ago. So sometime after this is when I mean, it says a year ago. It could have been like 1.9, like for all I know, like it's been a long time, and that was when I first had the idea. Because in this video and in the other one, they talk about like the criteria they use to consider whether something is good, something is like bad, what they like in a 1 cost versus like a 5 cost versus like a 3 cost, uh, and the general design goals. I'm gonna try to align with like what more Ritrock uh Cameron's, they say his name, but I forgot what his actual name is. But what the rioters like try to use as criteria for their units. But obviously, because this is going to be my stuff, like I'm going to try like there's going to be my opinions in it as well. Uh, but yeah, I'm trying to create a like what is all like. I mean, it's never going to be objective, but as close to objective, the good design as possible, relative to like the riot standards. So yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go into this. I don't know how many I'm going to do today because I don't have much time and there's a lot. Because I've also been thinking about this. Some of these are like pre-thought. Like I already know what I'm going to do for at least like the first bunch of them, and then later I'll be more than happy to just like think about it on stream, or maybe like I don't know outside like. But the point is, I already have some of these planned, so I'm just gonna go through it. Starting with Aatrox. So Aatrox, I already know, is one that there's already been a version for every cost. There's been a 1 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost, 4 cost, 5 cost. Specifically, I think these two were 3 costs. Set 4 was I think 4 cost. 5, I don't remember. But like I don't know. Can I just 7 was 1 cost. 8 was 4 cost. 9 was 5 cost. 11 was 2 cost. So regardless, there's been one for every. So I'm just going to pick one based on like the kind of kits, and then just decide like it'll kind of shape into a certain cost. So as far as I know, I mean I haven't played set like there's obviously the set 4 revival, but I haven't actually played set 4, and I played the revival like a tiny bits, but not a lot. Is this the revival version? So this is a chain. Okay, yeah. As far as I know, there hasn't been an iteration of Aatrox that has used like his proper Q combo in League. As far as I know, like they use his Q, but they don't use like the chain of Qs with like the 3 different versions at the same time. So that's kind of what I wanted to go for. To be clear, I'm just gonna go with the practice tool, which is probably how I imagine I'm going to be explaining a lot of these. I'm gonna pick something here. And obviously, I also can't cater to like for the future. I can't cater to like the set themes or anything. So this is just purely based on the champion. Maybe in the future I could try to come up with a custom set based on like certain skin lines that I just have a cool theme that fit together. But for now, this is not what that's gonna be. I'm just gonna solely focus on the champions, their thematic design, their kits in League, their I mean just generally what they go for. Because one thing that is talked about a lot is like for determining what a unit should be is the silhouette. So it applies in League too, where obviously the champion should look like what it is. So like a tank should look tanky, a mage should look like magey, like etc. So I'm gonna talk about that as it applies. Aatrox is, I mean, if you look at him, he's like a demon-looking thing. I mean, most games don't have like the concept of a dark imp, but I mean, he's like, even though demons also exist in League, which is kind of confusing. But yeah, he's like this demonic, like really like big great sword guy. Like his main thing is like his like kind of demon vibe, and then his big great sword. That's kind of what Aatrox is. And then in League, he does that where he slams his great sword and stuff. Uh, and then I mean, this his W is kind of weird. I don't think it would be very good to. I don't know. Yeah, his E is a dash, which I mean, you can't really complain about that. His R is this really big, like evolve thing. He grows his wings to like true form. See, he even says demonic form, but he's a darken, and then he's not a demon, and demons exist, and it's are a completely different thing. That's confusing, but yeah. So if you play Aatrox in League, uh, you probably know that the main thing that he does, that's that's it. That's just his Q, just his Q. He gets three of them. They all have different hitboxes. Uh, the mechanics behind the Aatrox Q is that they have their sweet spot where they do bonus damage and they briefly knock up the targets. So you can see sour spots, and then if you see like the thing, I mean, I have to be faster and okay. The window isn't that big, but like if you hit the sweet spots, they get knocked up. So that's the idea I had. It's a little difficult to incorporate into TFT, but so I had to like go through this a lot. But if you look at the shape of this and then the subsequent ones, it's kind of okay. Like it with the hexagon system that TFT uses, like for the tiling, it kind of fits. Or this would be like a 2-hex straight line, or maybe even a 3-hex, but probably 2, just for the sake of simplicity. This would be like a cone, and then this last one would be just AoE. So within the context of TFT, this Aatrox would be a lower mana cost units, like probably like 40. Probably a 4 cost. That's kind of the design space I think about. It most reminds me of like 4 cost Gwen and the versions of that. Uh, Probably. Because the other thing I want to include would be his dash. I think, like, if you play Aatrox, like, he dashes to try to hit the sweet spots. And I think that can be pretty easily incorporated into TFT. Uh, but there's obviously going to have to be some changes. I think having a knockup would probably be bad if he's going to have, like... I feel like the knockup would be too complicated. I think TFT, 4-cost Aatrox, this one, should have the sweet spots, but it just does more damage, and like that's it. The other thing is that the dashes would be used to... It'd be like the smart dash system. I don't remember how many units have it, but I remember like Yasuo, like a couple versions of that, would dash to create like the best line. So my Aatrox would dash to try to hit sweet spot as much as possible. So if they hit their sweet spot, then that's good. If they... Okay, let me try to like get multiple things here. So like let's say like they're hitting their current targets. Any sweet spots. In the Q1, it doesn't hit that many things, but Q2, it would dash to hit the... I don't know. I mean, that's like a bad example, but like if it could hit more people with the sweet spots, or if it's not hitting its like main targets with the sweet spots, it would dash to do so. And then the third Okay, so the first two cues are kind of like easy to understand, but the last cue, it's like smaller range, but so in League, the third cue, it's just directly on top of him. I think the shapes in TFT would be have to kind of sort of match, but it'd be a little complicated. I don't think I need much more here, but just go here and try to go to like the map. Let's just use this. So Rel is gonna be my Aatrox, and then I'll just have like Vander represents enemies with a full board. So in order to include the sweet spot system, you'd have to do something kind of interesting, which would be to give Aatrox 2 range. Like you don't have to if you just put on his abilities, but I feel like you have a really difficult time knowing where to dash and how to like optimize damage if you didn't just have the range to look for. I don't know how Riot uses like the pathing when things are out of range, but so, like when your targeting is different from your like it's complicated. So the easiest way to understand this would be like, I mean, I guess I'll just use Ambessa because Ambessa is 2 range, or some of the time. But basically, at 2 range, there's gonna be 1 hex of distance for them to hit their target. Uh, so with the way the sweet spots would work, it would be in a line. So the first Q would be in a line. I don't know how to do the shapes. I don't know. So like the first Q would probably be something like a line, just 2 hex, where he hits the targets. The sweet spot will be on the outer edge. So if he's at 2 range, if he's at his max range and he's hitting his current targets, he's just gonna sweet spot the target, and that's it. Q2 would be like this kind of shape, I think. Kind of like fits. I don't know like how it works. So in this instance, if you could hit, like obviously you're gonna target your main target, but you can maybe dash to hit certain things. If you're like on the edge, and like it's something like this, and like to hit this Vander, you just would Q like this, but you see like this, so you like move dash 1 hex here, and then suddenly you're hitting 2 Vanders. So that's kind of how that would work. And then the Q3, it'd be kind of disgusting if it was just like a 2 hex AoE. So I'd probably just stick with like the 1 hex AoE, and this is just gonna be like more likely to dash, just to hit the sweet spot as much as possible, which I think would be fine. So like at this point, this like Aatrox, like Q3 would probably dash here 2 hits like more, and that's kind of like the core mechanic. Now it was just a little bit of like, I'm not gonna say common sense, but just like forethought, foresight. When this Aatrox runs into a situation where they're fighting melees who are like, and like their melee like is targeting them and is running at them, what my current sweet spot system would end up doing would be to cause Aatrox to dash backwards, which I'm not really sure if it's a good idea. It's like, I think balance wise, it probably is better for the Aatrox because it kind of keeps him safer, but visually it kind of makes it look like Aatrox is a coward, which is the opposite of what Aatrox is. And then secondly, it makes it harder to like get onto backline, which is what you want to do with a lot of melees. You kind of want them to like wrap onto backline and do that. And if he keeps moving backwards, he's never going to target the backline until like pretty much all the front line is dead. So because of that, it is very tricky to come up with like a proper solution. Besides like maybe moving the sweet spots and like making it backwards, which maybe would be better, at least because I don't think people actually care where the sweet spots are, maybe. I don't know. But I feel like to have that system would have like it would take a lot of work. I feel like this concept for an Aatrox like unit probably isn't like that crazy. Probably has already been thought about, and maybe they've also realized the same problems, which is why it probably hasn't been added or something. But I feel like there are ways that could work around it. And like item wise, it would probably just look for like just generic bruiser items, whatever. I don't see how there's anything crazy. Uh, for AP scaling, you can probably make it to like Q3 also like heals. I wouldn't do a percentage I'd probably just do like a flat amount, like a lot of these other units tend to have. Like I just do like what Vi has, which she just has her shield, and it has like a little like okay amounts, and then that's it. So on Q3, she also would just or Aatrox would also just like heal for like 250 or something, and then that's it. So if you go Titans, you can buff that a little bit more. Because if you were to tie it to damage, like if you were to do like he heals for 50% of the damage his ability does, uh, for a 4 cost, that becomes really hard to balance. So, because if you nerf their damage, you nerf their healing. Like everything kind of like compounds on itself. So if you can separate it, it's like creates a separate balance lever instead of kind of putting them together. But yeah, this kit would probably only be able to exist as a 4 or 5 cost. I think as a 5 cost, it might be a little under, like, depending on how, like, I mean, obviously, you could probably just, like, numbers adjust it, but I think if it's the design of a 4 cost well enough, that's, I think it would just be fine as a 4 cost. So that's kind of what I had in mind for Aatrox. And another thing I realized, I just have to memorize how far, I mean, I could just write it down somewhere, but because if I wanted to like record these as like videos, I don't really know if I would use the same benchmarks or the same stopping points as I do on stream. Like if I stop at a good number, then maybe. But like I don't know if I just like would do like 10 champions or something, or like how long it would take, because it would take a long time to go through everything. Uh, so I mean I'm just gonna stop when I have to stop because I have to go at some point. But I don't know. That's for future me to figure out. So yeah. Next we have Ari, which I don't remember. I think she has not been a 3 cost, if I recall correctly. This was 2 cost. This is 2 cost. This one is I don't remember. But this is set 6 Ari was 4 cost. Oh, this is 4 cost. This is Spirit Bomb. Uh this is 5 cost. This is 4 cost. This is 1 cost. And then last set. What was Ari last set? Certainly not a 3 cost though. Oh, 2 cost. So yeah. Let me just verify that Spirit Bomb Ari was not a. Yeah. She has never been a 3 cost. So to make a 3 cost Ari, uh, I think her kit lends itself to you can just kind of again pair her abilities together and make a 3 cost kit. What I had in mind was kind of just like using like Lucian or like the Lucian slash Kindred slash the like whatever dashing units exist. I'm gonna go to Lucian first and then I'll go to Kindred. But the Lucian version that keeps getting printed, not this one. This one, where it dashes away and then does damage. So this Lucian has existed as a 1, as a 2 and a 3 cost. I'm not really sure which version was better balance-wise, but I feel like you can kind of tune it with just numbers. I think Ari can be a champion that just dashes. And she shoots her like foxfires, and then that's it. I don't know if because I played set one, but I didn't play 6.5, which is kind of crazy considering set 6 is my favorite set. But I mean, set 6.5 like really ruined it for me. So Kindred, the one I think of, I don't know how many there. Not this one. What was this one? Oh, this is a 3 cost Kindred that also. So yeah, the difference between a 2 and a 3 cost, I don't really know because they kind of did the same thing. I mean, this one has like a. No, it just does damage, and then I guess maybe previous wounds. But like, what separates this type of unit from a 2 or a 3 cost? It might just be a numbers thing. I'm not sure. But what I think of is this Kindred specifically, because this is the one that I played. But yeah, like she just dashes and then does damage to 2 enemies. I think this Ari would probably be single targets but AoE if I had to. Either that or it would use this a similar system to like I feel like stack making it stack. Okay, so I have some ideas, but I'm gonna go to the practice tool and and just demonstrate visuals for like what I have in mind.
You're not afraid of me, are you?
So with the way dashing champions work in TFT, I feel like they just naturally lend themselves better to being a 3+ cost. I feel like as a 2 cost, they usually run into problems where like if their numbers aren't high enough that current patch, you just never click them. Whereas at least a 3 cost, power wise, they should be strong enough to play, and then having them dash around is just visually satisfying to play, to watch. So I feel like this kind of would lend itself to a 3 cost kit anyway. But basically, and then as far as I know, Ari has not been a dashing champion, but I mean, she definitely has it. Like, this is a thing that's Ari can do, and it would be pretty cool. So what I would imagine it just to be. Oh, I have to actually wait. That's lame. But yeah, she just dashes, shoots a little foxfires, and that's it. Uh, so her R already like shoots a projectile, but it would just be like her R plus W. It just would shoot like a bunch. So I think a good comparison would be as for how the projectiles I think would work would probably be backline Swain, where they have a set amount and like they can hit multiple units. They're gonna mostly focus single targets, but like they can kind of like there's just a spread amount, like a set amount of foxfires, and then they just like kind of hit whatever's nearby. If like the unit's dead, they just kind of go over. Sometimes they hit, but they're like, also I think that they're like, it's not gonna say here, but I also don't play backline Swain. They're like kind of AoE, but I feel like this is it's basically backline Swain with a dash and probably does like less damage and or like slash it just has less projectiles. That's kind of what I had in mind for Ari. And obviously the dashing isn't gonna come into play until like stuff is actually targeting it, but that's fine. It'd be a ranged unit anyway. These are all ranged units, and like whether they dash around doesn't really matter until like they're being hit. But I feel like that version of Ari would be really fun to watch. I think it'd be easier to balance than a 2 cost dashing champ anyway. but it's otherwise something like very similar to what already exists or has existed within TFT. And like I think Swain has like 8 crows or whatever. You could just give Ari like 5 or something. I feel like because I had an idea to make it have like a stacking mechanic, which a lot of these like things that have a certain number of projectiles tend to do, but that would just kind of be not balanced. At that point, it would just be like a 4 or more cost. Because right now this set we have like Heimer, whose projectiles, the projectile count scales, but uh, yeah, I feel like that would have to be because there have been like lower costs that have had the stacking mechanic, but then that like they're like entirely balanced around that. I think set 6 Heimer had like similarly scaling like missile counts, but that was a 3 cost, and like that was like kind of a balance problem because he was either useless or OP, and there was no in between. So I feel like, and because you could reroll for a 3-star 3 cost much easier than like a 4 cost, uh, it just becomes a problem. So I feel like if I were to combine those two, like the dashing and the stacking, that would not be okay. So I'm just gonna stick to one, and I kind of like the dashing because Ari has a nice dash, and yeah, it's just visually pretty cool. Yeah, that would be my Ari, and she's only missing a 3 cost, so that would be that. Next, we have a Kali. I'm not. I mean, it's just a Kali. I also don't remember what exists in for a Kali. I don't think there's been a 1 cost. So currently we have a 2 cost. Have we had a 3 cost? We've had 5 cost. We've had this was 4 cost, and then this was 4 cost. Sets. What was a Kali last set? 2 cost. Set 4 Kali. I don't even know what this was. I didn't play it. Let's see what this set Kali. I'm pretty sure. Oh, this is a 3 cost. Oh, what is this? It's just our Q. It's just our Q. But they made that for. I mean, okay. I guess. Wait. So a 1 cost Akali, I feel like shouldn't be that bad because she has simple spells. And like usually you put them together to make something complicated, but I mean you can simplify it. Like if you really wanted to make a 1 cost Akali, you could just make her Q or something. Uh I mean they seem to have done that for like 3, 4, I think 2 costs like I mean, you could like you just balance the numbers around that, and it would be fine. But I feel like that's a little bit more boring. But then you have her W and her E. Actually, now that I think about it, which are too flashy for a 1 cost, and her R. So I feel like a 1 cost Akali would have to use her Q, because otherwise, what you could do. I mean, like Akali is just he's like just a ninja pretty much. Like there isn't really much that like kind of separates her from that. So you could kind of make a custom ninja move sets. Something that would use her weapons, or Kami, or her dagger. You could maybe call back to old like pre-rework Akali, or if she had like a little twirl, like Katarina does, and like that could also be a 1 cost kit. But otherwise, what I just think of is just Q auto, which is not like different because considering there have been Akali variations that have only used her Q, but I feel like it adds a little bit of like something to her spell to have like the second parts as a melee carry, which Akali would 99% chance have to be. But it kind of like separates it. So you have like little bit of AoE and then a little bit of single target. The auto attack would be like it'd just be bonus magic damage. So the spell would read something like, uh, she slings her kunais in an arc, dealing damage, and then powers her next auto attack, uh, dealing damage, and that's what that would be. Uh, I think one cost like simplicity wise, that's fine. I mean, I don't know how likely Riot would be to reprint a Kali variation that uses her Q only as like a higher cost, especially with the removal of like traits of like assassin. Because I don't know if that's ever coming back.
I'm not here to make
So at least like in the past, they had the excuse of like, oh, because she jumps into the backline, she's actually AoEing the backline, and that's what makes her like interesting. But we aren't likely to have that anymore. So, uh, an Akali that only uses her Q probably wouldn't cut it for a higher cost.
no one tells me what to
But for a lower cost, I think that's perfectly like that's fair game. Like it's perfectly fine for a one cost to just do that. And I think balance wise, it's pretty easy. Like I feel like that's just all that's needed for that. And that'd be pretty good. Next we have Akshan. There has not been many Akshans, so we have a couple more to talk about here. This one was a 5 cost. This was a 3 cost. And that's it. So I'm looking for a 1, 2, and a 4 cost. So, okay, this one I've had trouble with. Because I had some kits, but not many. And then as I thought about it later, because I've recorded this previously, but I realized that some of these are just not that good of an idea. The idea I had for one cost auction was just pretty much what current Maddie does. It's also kind of similar to what I think 3 cost Action did. I don't remember the targeting. What was the targeting for Action? I don't think it was further. I think it was like. What was this targeting? This was just furthest. So never mind. That's just literally current Maddie. So yeah, I'd probably want to step away from that. I want to try to avoid doing stuff that has already been done as much as possible. So Akshan is like thematically, he's just kind of this like vigilante hero. I mean, he's just like this like comic book hero or like teledrama hero based on like Middle East, like Iran. Like his powers are like kind of interesting because he has like this whole scoundrel system and the like revival thing, which is a pretty big part of his lore. And I feel like that would be very problematic in a TFT kit. So I think I'll talk about that first. I feel like that kind of thing would only be able to exist on a like a 4 cost or more. And I feel like having a proper revive is like kind of crazy. So the way I thought of it being able to work, what like I had to like overly simplify it just for it to be like acceptable. So what I had in mind was that when an ally dies, uh Akshan marks the killer with like something as like the scoundrel. And when Akshan kills that unit, uh Akshan revives the unit that was killed as a 1-star lower cost of the same champion. I feel like that like it overly simplifies it, and it might be too weak, but this is something that I'm tying to Akshan like specifically, not like as a trait. It might just be its own trait, like realistically, but because I'm not doing traits, uh, tying it specifically to Akshan, I would just have to make it like as simple as possible, and then depending on the context of the set, you could just make it like you can amplify it more. But I feel like that would probably be the most balanced way to do it, where you're not getting an insane amount of value for the revive, but obviously it like is an homage to like the core of Akshan's kit. I mean, okay, like okay, the core of Akshan's kit in League is just like this thing, but uh, the theme of Akshan, uh, like that would be the way to include the scoundrel mechanic. So yeah, and then otherwise, like for his actual ability, it would probably just be like either like the same ability that's always been, or it would probably be like what 5 cost Akshan was, which is just like it's just I mean it's just this. He just swings around. You can tune it to a 4 cost with the revive mechanic. It's fine. Like balance wise, like I left it underpowered so that you can like so it's better to balance. But yeah, realistically, because he wants to be able to hit the scoundrel. The other way to do it would maybe be to like use his R, targeting, but like specifically targeting the scoundrel. And if there's no scoundrel, it'll just target the furthest. That's another possibility. But either way, something where he is firing his projectiles towards the scoundrel, like whether it uses his ears are, and then that's it. And then there will only be one scoundrel. I don't know if it'd be a good idea to have it revive multiple units at a time or not. I think it's just the first death, and then if that scoundrel is killed, it resets. So if something else dies, the next like that would probably be the easiest way to do it, like the safest way to do it. And then yeah, I think that would have to be a 4 cost or more. So I mean, I think that kit lends itself to a 4 cost like perfectly fine. Now for a 1 and 2 cost, a little tricky because you could just reprint like all the other stuff in the past and just this is just something. It's a really easy spell to use because just target furthest is like pretty strong. Uh, it's like really simple. Like you could just treat it like current Maddie, which is just literally that. Uh, I think that would be fine. I feel like that would be a little boring though. But there isn't. Okay, so there are some things to work with, but it's kind of hard to like tie it visually because those are like the most like flashy parts of Akshan's kit. So that's what it'd probably be best to use. Because he kind of like he with his crossbow boomerang thing, he like kind of has to lend himself to being a ranged unit that like moves like swings around and shoots a bunch of stuff. That's just what Akshan is. And if you stray away from that, that's just not no longer Akshan. So in League, he has this passive, which it modifies his autos. I feel like you can work with that to make something. Okay, he also has this boomerang. Visually, like it's relevant to his like laning phase, but like thematically, it doesn't really tie into Akshan that well. Or at least like what maybe not thematically is the right word, but like the visual like silhouette as to like what Akshan is. Like people don't think about the boomerang. So I mean, if you were to include the boomerang, this could maybe just be like a 2 cost ability and then that's it. Like he just does it. If it hits another unit, it extends its range and that's it. Pretty simple. It could be a 1 or 2 cost ability. Like honestly, as a 1 cost, it might be difficult to balance because of that much like I mean with it'd be like a position it'd be like a balance skewed thing where like people who understand positioning well, aka like high low pros, uh it would be a lot stronger in high low than in low elo, and like as a 1 cost, like you'd have to tune the numbers so that it'd be pretty much like really weak otherwise, unless you're like really, really good at positioning. But as a 2 cost, you can kind of like better play around something that hits that many units. Okay. So, like, so between the 1 and 2 costs, it would probably be between those two, just whichever, and then you can kind of just swap between the two. I think a 1 cost Akshan that uses his passive would be fine. You could either tie it to mana cost, or you could just make it every like 3 autos. He does it just like Zeri does currently. Or even like, I mean, just keep it like it is in League. He's just every like his ability is just every attack it does this. You can maybe give it like a small like ratio for the sake of like items and stuff. But like every attack fires like a second attack. Honestly, as a 1 cost, that might not even be bad. I think I like that more as a 1 cost and then this boomerang as a 2 cost. Just mostly because I feel like this as a 2 cost would also be fine. If it were a little weak, you could maybe make it so that he like gets the shield or like honestly just increase the numbers or something and it'd be like fine. Whereas I feel like this as a 1 cost would be a little bit problematic. So it'd probably be the other way around. So to reiterate, 1 cost Akshan would just have something modifying his autos, and that's it. 2 cost Akshan throws his boomerang. If it hits a target, it extends its range by 1. So basically, it just hits everything that is in the line, and then it comes back. And then 4 cost Akshan is going to use either his E or his R, and then have a revivement mechanic. Yeah, next we have Alistar. Alistar was a... This was a 4 cost? This was a 3 cost. Is that it? Okay, so we're missing a 1, 2, and 5 cost. Okay, so if you play League, you must already understand that Alistar has one of the simplest, like, visually simplest kits in the game. It's very iconic and very fun. So Alistar is a support champion. So his kit is revolved around uh both engaging and peeling his allies. And he's a tank and whatever. If you like look at him, I mean, okay, I have a skin here. He's not that intimidating here, but he's a Minotaur. He's this big menacing guy, so he kind of lends himself to being a tank. So there's no real problems there. Uh thematically. This would have to be a frontliner, probably have to be a tank. You could maybe like obviously there's ways to play Alistar as a like AP bruiser in League, but I don't think that would really be the best idea in TFT, at least in most cases, have something to keep in mind. So his kit has some unique abilities that I think all of which can work pretty well in TFT. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so the 4 cost Alistar did this, which is just the basic Alistar combo. Yeah, and then 3 cost Alistar, I think it just like queued and it had used his passive. So Alistar's passive just heals when he it just heals like periodically. Like I'm not gonna talk about that because this isn't a League video. But his Q is just an AoE knockup. His W is a knockback. his E builds up stacks. It does like small amounts of AoE damage, and when he has max stacks from being nearby, uh, like it's 5 stacks, and then when you have 5 stacks, your next attack stuns. And his R, uh, like it cleanses crowd control and it decreases his damage taken by a lot. So for a 1 cost and a 2 cost Alistar, I feel like you'd kind of have to, like, you can mix and match stuff and it would work fine. You could kind of just use individual abilities and it would work fine. But some things aren't super good. Like, I don't know how happy Riot would be to use certain things for his kit. What I'm talking about specifically is his W, which when used with his Q is like obviously like pretty like simple. And it's kind of like easy to think about, but using it like what I had meant was just to use his W alone. And having these kinds of knockbacks effects is like not very common in TFT. Right now it exists as repulsor in like as an anomaly. There have been variations of like Tristana who gets a knockback, but otherwise knockbacks are like not very common. The other version I guess is like Lee Sin kick, Cassante thing, like that's 5 cost spell. But I don't think that's like the same thing as what I'm going for. I'm just, you could obviously I guess print that as a 5 cost and then that's it. But I feel like for Alistar that's not very interesting. So rather, I personally would think it would be more interesting to have this be a 2 cost spell. Or Alistar, he's like a frontline disruptor. You can maybe give him some defensive value towards it. You can maybe make it so that he like heals or something, like from his passive, and then just knockbacks the current target. Balance wise, that's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of a problematic thing because this placement in TFT is like really, really impactful just because of how it works with targeting. Because if you displace out of unit's range, you're just gonna target onto something else. So if this Alistar were to just headbutt the main tank out of the range of its carries, that's really bad for the enemy team. I think I have it in a short, but like you could like, I think last set Tristana, you could use that to counter a lot of comps just by frontlining it and removing the main tank from the range of your allies. So I feel like that Alistar would be really hard to balance, though I would personally be really like I'd be a huge fan if Riot tried to do that and make it work somehow. I'd give them a ton of credit for pulling that one off. The other spells are like easier, but I mean, kind of boring. You could obviously just make Alistar use his E, and that would just be like a 1 cost spell. Maybe give him a little bit of like armor and magic resist, or you give him the durability while he does his little AoE thing, and then he stuns on the next auto attack. It would work kind of similar to like, I guess like Leona or like new like where they're channeling with durability, and then they do what their thing. This Alistar would be the same, except it's a single. It's the AOE, and then the stun is just a single target, like auto attack modifier. That could be a 1 or a 2 cost. Honestly, I wouldn't use that for both. So if we lock in the headbutts as a 2 cost spell, somehow, I feel like that's gonna be one of the more problematic ones. Whatever. The 1 cost spell will just be the E, and then that's it. So, a 5 cost Alistar would be kind of complicated because you'd kind of just have to use all of his spells, or you'd have to combine a lot of stuff for it to be like a really convincing 5 cost kits, which are meant to be complicated and like satisfying on their own and like uh comp like centerpieces. So again, there is the option of just making Alistar have the knockback effect that Lee Sin, Cassandre have, and if he just knocks them out of combat, if he knocks them while they're on the edge of the board, he knocks them out of combat. You can just reprint that ability, and it would work fine on Alistar. However, I do think that would be a little cowardly. Just cause I don't know, I have a more fun idea, which would just be literally just combine all the spells. Or I didn't like press all my buttons, but like you could literally just combine all the spells, and that'd be a pretty cool ability. A little hard to balance, maybe. The other idea would be to make his Q like just combine specifically. Uh, I think it was E and R, the ones that I had in mind. Or this would be a more of a pure tank, which for a 5 cost is kind of rare. Maybe you could this could be the version that you balance towards being like AP bruisery. But basically, what I had in mind is he uses his E and then his R together, and then that's it. Uh, Maybe you don't get. Okay, I think the best comparison for what I had in mind for that would be specifically this spell. So this Terra, like, is pretty much what I had in mind. Where Alistar would trample around him in a pretty large AoE, and he gets durability during that time. And then that would be a 5 cost spell. Just because you can balance it around that. You can just make it so he's really tanky during that time, and he can do a lot of damage. So this Terra was like pretty unique in that the itemization was like Gargoyles BT, where it scales really well defensively, but it's also like bruisery, so you'd want to build healing on it. And it like wasn't like super rewarded for building like damage. I feel like you don't have to do that with Alsar, but I feel like this spell, like maybe like swap out this stuff with like something more appropriate, where it just quakes around with like really like tankiness, and then like that's it. I think that would be pretty interesting for Alistar, because even though it's like not like visually crazy, it is like pretty impactful to see like a big minotaur like just like shaking the ground, like but like a really large part of the board, and he's like really hard to kill, and like I feel like that is pretty easy to do with Alistar. Because like even though I personally did not like playing with this set, a lot of the spells were really cool, and I like the design on a lot of the units. I just think Dragon kind of was a balanced nightmare. But this Terra unit, I'm a really big fan of. So yeah, that would be my Alistar variations. So even though Alune is not in League, I do have an idea for Alune, so I do want to talk about it. Uh, Alune, if you don't know, is Aphelios' sister. She is the voice that you hear if you play Aphelios. She's also the one responsible for making Aphelios' weapons, with like the 5 guns. She herself, lore-wise, is like she's a Lunari, which is like a moon worshipper. She's like like a Lunari mage, so she's like she has magic and stuff. She has like moon powers, whatever. Uh, she was first playable in set 11 as a standalone unit. What this Alune does is she just rained meteors in a row, and then she also like shredded them, and like she had like a bunch of like unnecessary passives. But like the visual like theming of it was that she like rained meteors, and that was like how kind of how they called to her moon powers. So it's not a lot to go off of because we don't really have like good instances of like moon power, like how the Lunari magic works within League. Uh, because like the other example would be like Diana, but she doesn't really demonstrate that very much, except for in her ult, which is just it just shoots light from the sky or from I don't even know around her in an AoE, and that's it. We don't have like much visual uh demonstration. Whatever. I'm just gonna stick with that theme of stuff from this like celestial things from the sky doing stuff. So because I'm not going to go through like five iterations of Balloon, uh, because she's not in League, I'm just going to for now come up with just one for her. I mean, because I only thought of one because I just thought that would be like a really interesting concept. So this Balloon would be a 5 cost, and the reason for that is just the mechanic that I thought it would only work on a 5 cost, which would be her. She would have her unique passive, uh, similar to like her unique trait, like Rumble or like Savika. She'd have to have one of these pretty much, but her traits would be to every round create a random weapon, and these weapons would be like Aphelios's guns. So every round she replaces the one that she already made, and she just randomly picks between the five. And yeah, so like the five guns would be like like five Aphelios guns. So it'd be the uh, green, red, purple, blue, white guns. I can go by their name. I think it's like uh Crescendum, Severum, Gravitum, Infernum. It's the white one. Is that one Crescendum? Oh no, yeah, no. The white one's Crescendum, the green one's Calibrum. Yeah. But yeah. She'd create the five guns, and these would be items. Power wise, kind of like artifacts slash like maybe ink shadow items from set 11. Uh Somewhere around there. I think closer to like ink shadow items from set 11. So uh I don't know if we can go and demonstrate that somewhere. Uh Set history, Inkborn Fables. Yeah, ink shit. Okay. Uh oh. Ink shadow items. Let's just pull them up. Okay, yeah. Okay, here. So balance wise, I would say these are like in between artifacts and regular like completed items. Or this was like essentially of like a better Morello. This was like a better what's the item? Protector's Bow. This is like a better Runons. And yeah, so it'd be like that. So a loon would randomly create one out of the five guns, and each of these guns would, I mean, obviously they'd be like a different ink shadow item, and yeah, I think this Alloon, not that it would have to, but like it would probably be fitting to have this Alloon exist in the same set as Aphelios, and for the guns to be like all good on Aphelios, but not necessarily like balanced towards that. I feel like this Aphelios could not be a high cost just because if you have that kind of synergy as like if considering this alone would be a high cost, having that kind of synergy with like a high cost thing, like if you have like a 4 or 5 cost core or like a double 5 cost core or like something, that would be really, really hard to make balanced. But I feel like if you were to pair this with like a two cost affiliate, so you can like reroll, and then you can cap it out by getting a loon, and then uh the loon guns would be like the third item. I feel like that would be like a really cool uh way to play the game. But yeah, so the five guns, like you're gonna have to work with me here. It's a little hard to describe everything, but all right. So a loon. Okay, Aphelios has five guns. The green gun is like a long range gun. Uh, the red one is like a short range, fast attacking dagger pistol. It also has healing. The purple gun is like crowd control. The blue gun is AoE, and then the white gun is like ramping, but also melee. But I mean, I think the core idea is like ramping. So going in order, the green gun I feel like would probably be somewhat close to like a sniper's focus. It would like be like a just a differently balanced sniper's focus. Like that's just what I have in mind. Like he just changed the numbers in some direction. Like maybe it gets like only plus one range, and then like that's it or something. Because like these gun like these weapons, I want them to be like viable on anyone, not anyone, but like on like many different units. But them to all have like pretty good synergy with like an Aphelios type units. But you could technically put them on whoever you want. So yeah, and Sniper's Focus is a pretty versatile artifact. Like you can pretty much put it on any ranged unit and it'd be good. Like there's also like some melee units that it's really really good on, and you could probably do that with this Alloon version as well. But I feel like that might get too complicated. So I feel like one range, but otherwise like similar. Maybe some of the numbers change depending on how you want to tune the item. But I feel like that would just be the thing, because what the green gun does, like the idea is just it extends Aphelios's range. The spell is just like a long range thing. Like that's kind of like the only thing that like strike like stands out about that gun. So I feel like that's just that lines up pretty easily. Next for the red gun, I feel like this one would probably be the hardest to do because the red gun does a lot of things differently, and it's pretty hard to balance. So because it's healing but fast attacking, and if you were to do both of those, it gets complicated. So realistically, you could just do something like Corrupted Vamp Scepter, where like that item, even though it's been removed, what it did is it gave attack speed and then it gave on hit damage and it gave healing from that on hit damage. I feel like you could just do that, but make the numbers lower and make it not disable your ability. But you could just make it so like the stats it gives is like a lot of attack speed, and then the effect is like much like smaller. I think it was like 50% bonus damage on hits, and you heal for 50% of that damage. Or maybe you heal for 100% of that damage. I don't remember. And you could just lower that part, and then maybe keep the attack speed like the same, and then that would be that version. That'd be the red gun. And then the purple gun would work either similar. I think it'd work either like Touch of Frost does currently, like that anomaly, where it has stats and then it just gives you Touch of Frost, or it would work like Glacial Mallets, but specifically from the set Revival. But I don't know how good of an idea that one would be. So I feel like I would lean more towards just current Touch of Frost. Can I find that? Uh, place. No. Yeah, this one. So it gave stats. Uh, Attacks have the chance to stun enemies and deal bonus magic damage based on Glacial from set 1, which was a super problematic trait. Not quite as bad as Phantom, but like it was pretty problematic. Uh, I You'd have to be careful about adding this in a set with like a lot of Rage Blade users or something. But like I feel like this could work, something like this, or something that gives uh this effect where instead of stunning, like instead of having a chance to stun, you just chill, and then instead your abilities stun. This might be much, but I feel like you could just give the item like kind of lower stats, and then this it'd be okay. I feel like one of those two would probably be the best way to approach the purple gun. And then for the blue gun, I was just thinking of like just doing like tattoo of bombardment, except that maybe you can even double down and like make it do less damage but more bolts. So okay, so the original idea what I had was like it goes every auto, but then and there's like four bolts, but they all do like really little damage. They do like 20% damage. I don't know how good of an idea that would actually be, but like it would just basically be some version of Runons or Tattoo of Bombardment where you get more bolts and that like represents the AoE, and then yeah, and it just has like stats, and that's it. I don't know if one, two, three, four bolts. I don't know what the correct number is because I can't like actually like that'd be something you have to like test and properly balance. But at least for my proposal, it some amount of bolts, some amount of AOE, like that's what that is, and then that's the thing. And then for the white gun, I feel like that would have to be kind of similar to Runon's, but for it would give AD and I guess maybe AP. It'd probably work like Anger Issues Runon's, except just lower the numbers. So like instead of the attack speed, it'll just give like stacking AD AP and that's it. Maybe like you get one AD AP per attack and then that's it. I feel like that would be fine. And yeah, okay. So that is just a loon's custom traits, and then now for her actual spell. Uh, what I want to reference is let's just go here. Specifically, this Asol, set A Asol, where he rained meteors onto random enemies, and they burned. What this Loon would do is it do the same thing, except instead of burning, it would like either chill or mana reave. I don't know which effect is more appropriate for uh like a moon kind of power. I mean, that other loon like shredded, so maybe you could also do that. But I feel like doing a chill or mana reave is like a more interesting effect to apply. And then yeah, the other thing is that because this was the hero augment set, so this Acel had a hero augment that empowered his meteors to be like bigger. They instead of being single target, they were a one hex AoE. And that was like pretty interesting. So what I was thinking is that you could kind of combine that a little bit, where Maya Loon would fire three meteors on random enemies, and then a fourth large meteor on the largest clump, all of which would like mana reef, chill, like whichever. I'm just gonna go with chill, just for the rest of this explanation, just for the sake of consistency. But I feel like just some status effects, like whichever would be appropriate. So the three for the first stage is completely random, and then the fourth is on the largest clump. The random meteors cannot hit the same units, like if there's other units that can be hit. So if there's more than 3 units alive, the 3 random meteors won't target the same one. However, the fourth one will just target the largest clump. So it is possible for a unit to be hit by the three one of the 3 small meteors and the large meteor. Like, I think that would be fine. But yeah, that's the spell I have thought of for a loon. And then also, not that it matters much, but I feel like the color that would be used would be like a light blue. Like, not that it matters much, but it would like. I'm like, I don't know how to represent that. Maybe I would spend time drawing it, but that would take a long time because I'm not the best artist. I mean, actually, I'd have to. I'm definitely not going to animate that. But yeah, that's what I had in mind. Now, Mbessa, I had not thought about at all because when I started, it was before Mbessa was revealed like to be in League. Like, I figured she was going to be because of Arcane, but yeah. So this kit is a little something. So there's obviously only the current Mbessa because she just released. This is a 4-cost Mbessa, which fortunately is one of the more complicated ones. I feel like Mbessa's kits in League can kind of work for a lot of the other stuff because she has like pretty like standout abilities. So if you look at Mbessa, like I got her splash art, but then I'll also zoom in game. She kind of lends herself to just being like a warrior, a fighter. Like, there isn't really any problems with that image of her. So, and that's obviously how she's balanced, how she's designed. And I feel like the newer the champion, the better that they lend themselves to do that. So yeah, this Mbessa would have to be like a fighter type champion units. And Mbessa's abilities, uh, people really hated her passive. I feel like in TFT, her passive would be pretty difficult to incorporate properly. I would probably leave that for a 5-cost Mbessa, which I guess I will have to figure out. But her other abilities are pretty straightforward on their own. Her Q has 2 casts. The first is a arc, second is a line. I feel like that could just be a 1-cost spell. Pretty similar to the Akali that I just described. Where it's AoE component and then straight line. I guess instead of an auto, it's just a straight line one, which it's functionally the same as an auto, kind of. Maybe if there's a unit behind, it would hit that too, but that's not necessarily going to be likely. I feel like that it could just work pretty easily. Her W is just a shield and does damage. I feel like you could include this as a part of one of her spells, but on its own, that's just a tank ability, and I don't think that it would be that good for Mbessa to be a pure tank. Like, you can't, like, if Riot were desperate, they could, but I don't think, like, thematically, that would be very fitting. But if you were to include it with, like, because what makes it, like, stand out in League is that you mix it with her passive, which lets her dash. and then that's how that turns into like a cool ability. Right. But on its own, it's a probably not for TFT. For her E, she has the double swirl, and oh, you get the twirl, and then the second swirl if you use her passive, which you probably will. I feel like this could be like a good 3-cost spell. If you AoE, dashes AoE. I think maybe she would like dash through her current targets. I think she would AoE, dash to her current target, and then AoE again. And I think that would be cool. Balance wise, maybe tricky. It's like super consistent, and then it would maybe have the problem where like to balance it, you would have to like lower her damage, and then she might just be like unable to kill like the thing that she wants, so she'll just be stuck on the same unit, dashing forward and backwards the whole fight. Maybe that would be fine, but like that's just what I think when like thinking a little bit further into the actual implementation of that. Her R, which I mean that it is part of her spell in the TFT one. I feel like this could just be its own thing as well. Maybe this could be an assassin type spell for like a 2-cost or maybe a 3-cost. It could also be a 5-cost, honestly. But I want to try to come up with a way to incorporate her passive in a 5-cost version. I mean, I guess our current kit kind of like the 4-cost one that exists in the current sets kind of incorporates a lot. So maybe I don't have to. Because you could obviously make this target the furthest units. And then for like a 5-cost bruiser, that'd already be a lot. That as a 5-cost, that might be difficult to balance because the numbers would have to be like strong enough where she'd actually be able to kill stuff. And if she were able to pretty reliably get onto backline, that's very dangerous. Like for it to be like that reliable, I feel like you can't do that. So you'd probably have to put that on a lower cost unit. The spell isn't complicated enough where you can't put it on a lower cost unit. And you just make it so that like she doesn't necessarily do that much damage. So you kind of have to like commit to rerolling her. Yeah, I feel like you could give this to a 2-cost. She targets the furthest, not like within. I don't know what the correct range number would be, because right always flips between what they think the correct range for like a long range dash slash like furthest unit, like that type of targeting to be. What I think of is like as like the main reference is this Z. Is that so? It's 2 plus range hexes, and yeah, it does AOE. I mean, this one would kind of bring him towards stats. I don't know. Maybe for our 2-cost it would be problematic, but I feel like as a 5-cost it would also be problematic. I mean, that might also be why this spell doesn't exist, because the main problem is that Mbessa would have to be AD, which would mean that she has single target damage, which is the problem. If this were an AP unit, it would be less problematic because you could put it all into AoE. So when they're not casting their spell, they're not that problematic. Whereas if the unit is AD, that means their stats are buffing their autos. So once she's on the targets, she will like pretty reliably be able to kill them. And if you're just playing like I don't know. But in which case, what would the 5-cost version be? Like, what combination of spells would be the best kit for a 5 cost? I mean, the thing is, this is kind of similar to like the Aatrox that I talked about. I think maybe it'd be like a combination of her E and her W. Like would be the safest as like a 5 cost. Where it just like is her E, but she shields herself. Okay.
I will live to see tomorrow. My greyhound bites deep.
Why is my E not like working properly? Okay. I don't know. Oh, do I have like
Eno, my son,
okay, whatever.
you were a fool.
Let me think a bit. Because if you just did this as a 5 cost, I feel like that'd be too consistent. And 5 costs are supposed to be too consistent, but like, or they're supposed to be consistent. I mean, maybe the balance lever could just be, or not the lever, because I don't think Marias would want to regularly change what the how the targeting works. But maybe you don't do furthest, or maybe you don't do strong. Like, what would you have to target? Like, because the problem is, as a 5 cost, if she targets like the furthest, she will be able to kill them pretty reliably. So I guess the counterplay would be to not corner units, maybe, or to position to not be the furthest. But again, because she's AD, I mean, I guess you could balance it to where like it does less damage. I mean, this doesn't do a lot of damage. This is kind of just a gap closer. But like you kind of like keep her on a lower damage, but you make her tanky, so like, you can give her a shield when she does that. So it's basically like Vi ult from the current set, but like dash. I guess it's like the combination of like Brutal Revenge Rennie and Vi. Probably. That might be the best way to do it. To use that spell.
No enemy or ally will stand in my way.
I do kind of like the idea of the W and E, but I don't think that would actually be a good, like an interesting enough ability for a 5 cost. Though there has been some pretty boring 5 costs, like. But honestly, okay, I think the ultimate one, with that in mind, it's a bit maybe better to do it that way. Like she just shields, ults, displaces. Because I have it in my head that this should be doing a lot of damage, but really, like this doesn't actually do that much damage. This is just a gap closer. I feel like you could balance it to be both a version that does a lot of damage and a version to not be that much damage. I mean, honestly, you can make both. Honestly, the 2 cost one will just be like a more damage one, Where she's like glass cannon, she's like all in on that one target. And then like a little bit higher mana cost, and then this one, like the 5 cost will be like more bruisery. It does less damage, but she's like a lot harder to like take down. And I feel like both versions would be fine. So that'd be like the 2 and a 5 cost. The 1 cost again would be her Q. And then 3 cost is the E. Yeah, I think that works. So to make it more visually easy in TFT terms. So 1 cost Mbessa hits in an arc and then in a line. So Wapow, that. 2 cost Mbessa is like an assassin. Uh, just targets furthest within a certain range and then does a lot of damage to them, and that's it. And she jumps to them. I'm a little worried about that, but it's fine. I guess I don't know. I mean, this is only hypothetical, so it's not that's worrying. 3 cost Mbessa, AoE dash behind the current targets, AoE, which would probably be pretty cool. And then 5 cost Mbessa will be the same as the 2 cost, except she gets the shield and she's like more disruptive. I think, oh yeah, also the 2 cost one should probably not crowd control. It should probably just be a dash. That does damage. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that was understandable enough. Mumu. How many have I done? 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Maybe I get through all the A's. Or I'll try to get through most of the A's. Mumu, I think he's okay. He's a 5 cost here. He's a sets. I think these are both 3 costs, and currently he's a 1 cost. So now he only needs a 2 and a 4 cost. So Amumu is like the first one where I feel like his silhouette doesn't really match with what he is. Because for the most part, he's always a tank. And in League, he's for the most part a tank. You have TFT, I think he's just always been a tank. But if you look at him, he's not like really a tank. And his spells don't even necessarily point to him being a tank. Like, he's definitely a disruptor, but he's not necessarily a tank. So I feel like this is the first one where you can kind of... It'd be okay to stray away from being a pure tank in order to do some things. So literally piggybacking off of the example with Mbessa, I think it would be perfectly fine to have an Amumu that's just bandage toss, like AoE, and then like that's the spell. As a magic damage dealer, it's a bit better because you're like much more of his damage is based on his actual spell. So when he's not casting, he's not like doing a crazy amount. So this one would work similarly. He would target the furthest within a certain amount of range, throw his bandage, and then he would E and just do an AoE around them. So like Like he'd bandage toss, and then AoE around him, and then that's it. And then the next targets, you just jump around. And this one would be more AP bruisery than like a Mumu trip like typically is. Like this would be like a damage dealer. I feel like this works because like Amumu's like he's kind of just a little guy. Like you don't like if you play him in League, you can consider him a tank just how he's balanced. But like that playstyle doesn't necessarily lend itself to his silhouette, and neither do like his abilities can work in either role. And obviously, AP Bruiser Amumu isn't even like that's weird within the context of League. Like it's an off meta thing, but it's not like unrealistic, unreasonable. It's not like out of nowhere. So when you have an ability that's like oh, he's or like a theme where he's just a mummy, uh, his whole thing is that like he's cursed, which kind of also fits in. It fits more into the bruiser thing than it does to tank, because it's like you just want to keep him away from you, which unfortunately for him, Amumu wants a friend, yada yada. But the like, I think the whole like the what I think of when I think of Amumu is get this thing off of me. That's kind of what Amumu is. And in TFT, he's never really been that way because he's always been a tank. Uh, set 2 Amumu, like the 5 cost one, I think he just ulted and that like kind of did something, but like that's not quite the same. And then the set 10 and 11 Amumus were like they were just tanks. I think set 11, you just used his E, and it just I don't know. He just randomly gained stats. I guess it's because I guess that's like tying into this passive on his E. That's what they based that off of. And then sets 11, the same thing. Actually, not the same thing, but like it just uses W and then he healed. And they gave that healing, which doesn't necessarily fit, but whatever. So I think it's fine to use. I don't know. I tied them, assuming that meant something. But like, the point is, I think personally this would be a cool spell, and it'd be. I think personally, it would be okay to make a an AP bruiser. As for a 4 cost Amumu, here's another one where I'm cooking quite a bit. So he's going to ult, and then units hit by his ult, he will siphon HP from. That's the gimmick. So this Amumu would be a twist on the traditional AoE bot, because he's got a big AoE, but he doesn't have the reach that others would be. And what I mean is like, actually, I wanna. This doesn't overheat. So currently we have like Elise, and there's like other units like Sejuani, J4, like of the past that like all do the same thing. But you have the big AoE, like CC ability user. That's a 4 cost. They all have some kind of way to threaten like the backliner, and the whole thing is like, oh, you want to position them to hit the main carry backliner. My Amumu would be a little different in that this is like a more selfish version of that, where he does not move, he just ults around him. His spell only goes based on where he is, and instead he's like a more tanky unit that CCs. So his stun would only work on like it only hit like the units that are like close to him. It would be like a 2-hex AoE, so like it would hit like a good chunk of the front line, and from that he will siphon health Siphon being like he steals health, like he just permanently gains max health based on like what he does. Like similar to this. Also similar to like I don't know. There aren't that many examples to compare, but like there's also like oh this is League. Uh but yeah, like this Nasus, he also stole health. This was like a set number, so the Maya Mumu would have it would just be based on whatever's hit. So the main gameplay for this Amumu, which would be to hit as many units as possible, you'd stun them and you steal max health from them. So what the Len 2 gameplay wise would probably be like a solo frontline type unit that gets tankier over time. CC is like hard counters like about like the enemy frontline, and he wants to try to scale as much as possible. Balance wise, probably not like the healthiest to like with like this the way I'm describing it, it'd be hard to do that. So realistically, you would probably give him a high enough mana cost to where you can maybe get him to cast like twice in a fight. Like you treat him like a normal CC unit that you could expect to get cast only once in a fight, as they normally are. But in an ideal scenario, maybe you get like two stuns. But like any more than that would be too problematic because if he's stealing health and like you don't want infinite scaling, you just want the illusion of scaling. And I think Siphon specifically fits into a Mumu's kit because he's kind of like a mummy and it's like a curse. So you're like kind of cursing the enemy, and it's like a selfish Mumu's like kind of just a sad little guy, but uh, this is like a more selfish Amumu, gameplay wise and thematically, where he's like angry and he's stealing health from them. He's like intentionally cursing all these like enemy units and giving himself the max health. I don't know. I think that would be a cool move. And also would be interesting because like this would be like this probably wouldn't exist in the same sets where there's also another 4 cost CC unit. So this would be the CC unit 4 cost for whatever set. So because of that, backline becomes like a little bit more free, unless maybe there's like other units. There's just more CC in other units elsewhere in the set. But I think it's a really interesting combination of gimmicks that I think would be very appropriate to include on a version of Amumu. But yeah, that's it. Now we have Anivia. Also, my throat is hurting, so maybe I will stop sooner rather than later. Anivia only has 2 variations, 3 cost and a 5 cost. So I have to come up with a 1, 2, and a 4 cost. A little tricky. She has some okay abilities. I think both of her versions just use her ult, which is the Ice Storm. So it's not like there's that much overlap. Or not like there's that much that's been taken up already. Anivia thematically is a Cryo Phoenix. I think she's another one in the same boat. Like I think she's similar to a Mumu in that what she looks like doesn't necessarily fit how she plays. Because this is just a bird. This is an ice bird. So not many people would think, oh, this is a mage. This is like just a mage. Like that's not necessarily. You would think of like animalistic like champions units to have some kind of like AoE like impact. Like they take up space. So I feel like Anivia could be a frontliner, even though none of her kit in League tends to that. And I'm not sure if that's actually where I would go, but that's just something to keep in mind. I feel like there is room for flexibility within the thematic, because like Cryo Phoenix, while very like descriptive and like easy to understand, is quite flexible. Honestly, like you can, uh, I feel like you could rework on Nivea in so many different ways, and it wouldn't be that weird. Like maybe the player base in League would be upset, but like I feel like you could make like many different versions of an ice bird, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." So yeah, but basing it off of League just a little bit, her passive is an egg to revive. I think this could work on a 5 cost Anivia to include. Nothing like nowhere near anything else. So not on a 1/2 cost. I feel like maybe a 4 cost, but I mean, I right now I'm being tasked with coming up with a 4 cost. I'm not really sure if I would include this revive on a 4 cost, unless she were a melee unit. Maybe. I guess I could tackle that one first. I would, if I were to do anything, I would maybe make it so that like she's kind of similar to Shyvana. She's just like has this storm around her, and then the first time she dies, she has her revive, and then that's it. I guess if I were to make a better comparison, it'd be to like where's the Shyvana? Shyvana. I think it's just this one. She transforms into the dragon, gains an aura, and dives in. This would be essentially the same spell, except it would have the revive, and yeah, maybe make it so that she can like cast multiple times. I don't know if I'd make the AoE bigger, because if it were bigger, that'd be super that'd be super hard to balance, because she'd actually just be hitting everything at all times, and that's so you probably have to keep it to 1 hex AoE. But yeah, she has this ice storm around her. She's flying around. Or you could also treat it like a Singed type unit, like a Hero Augment Singed, or like a Nunu, where she's just flying around with the storm around her, doing damage, and then the first time she dies, she can revive. That could be a good idea. I feel like that would have to be a 5 cost, which is not what I'm supposed to be doing. If there's a world where that could work as a 4 cost, that would be a pretty cool idea too. It could definitely not be anything less than that. So, yeah. But I also have another idea for a 4 cost ability anyway, which I might stick with. So that might, I guess I'll count that as like a bonus one. Because I don't think I'm actually gonna use that. I don't think that would work. But for a 4 cost Anivia, what I have, I mean, I guess this is like kind of a cop out, but like basically, it's just to reprint. Where is it? It's to reprint, not this one. This Talia. So, set 8 Talia, she just summoned the wall in a line, and then it like does damage, and then it explodes and does more damage. This Anivia would be the same thing. I think it'd be better if the thing it would work exactly like the Talia. So her wall would just come starting from her towards like her target, and it just like just makes the wall, and then the wall explodes. So like it is exactly this Talia, except it is ice themed. I feel like this was a very good like designed forecast. Uh, like just gameplay wise, it was very simple, very straightforward. You just make sure that you're not like in a line. You wanna like position to like you have to watch the positioning for it to lead up. It's not like unrealistic. Like you can, it was not hard to play around. So I feel like this Anivia would work similarly, and it would be at a similar healthiness level. They replaced that Celia with like admittedly like also a pretty like good ability. Like it was with a Nico, and that Nico also had a pretty good ability. But I feel like both of them were fine. But I feel like with this wall specifically, it would be one of the few ways to reprint that spell on a not Celia unit. How do I yeah, be gone with that? So yeah, that would be my forecast spell. Or I mean, not my, but like it's fine. Then we have a 1 and a 2 cost. A little tricky. I feel like I don't know if I've seen this before from somewhere. If I'm thinking of a different unit from a different stats. But what I thought for Anivia is just she just E's and then like it just does more damage if she's already hit them recently. I feel like that already exists in some units. I just can't recall off the top of my head what unit that was. I can try to like scan through and Zoe was kind of like that last sets. Um, I don't think it was Zoe that I was thinking of. I feel like it was an Anivia, but like Anivia's only had those two versions, so it wasn't an Anivia. I feel like was it It was an Arise. Um, was it Lysandra? No. LeBlanc? I don't think it was LeBlanc. I don't know. But like the point is, I feel like it is just a single target projectile. It'll be lowish in mana cost, and then uh, it would like for a long time, like I don't know, like 8 seconds or something, make it so that it would apply a passive that's like if they are hit by an Nivea's spell, they take like it does more damage. So it wouldn't look like it wouldn't work like a Zoe, which like just reduces magic resist. But this is like more selfish towards Anivia, but it's otherwise like the same thing, where like she casts multiple times on the same thing and ramps up damage. Kind of similar to Cassio. Was it a Cassio? What was the one cost Cassio? Was it this one? Yeah, it was similar to this, I guess. It was like kind of like this. So yeah, it's kind of like similar to this Cassio and this Zoe, not this one. This Zoe, or low mana cost. She's just spamming her E. Single target damage. It ramps up, and yeah. And then okay, a 2 cost, little tricky. I think you could just make her Q as a 2 cost. I think that would work fine. It just current targets. It just stuns around the 1 hex AOE. So okay, there's no what do I use as my Nibia? Use Nami. So yeah, 1 cost Nibia, single target, hits the same thing over time, and it like kind of ramps a little bit, but it's just like a spam caster. It's gonna be a blue buff like Nashor's type unit. Then 2 cost Nibia will stun in a 1 hex AoE, so she's like hitting this locks and then it'll just stun around here, and then that's it. And then a 4 cost Anivia would either ice fall or fly around with the storm. So the ice wall, the way that Talia works is that it just prioritizes the most units in a line from her. So if you have something like this or something, like it would target like the biggest line, but like obviously when there's like more units, you have to like kind of like I don't know, it does like math and it calculates like the best line to hit as many units as possible. So you just kind of position like in like ways where it doesn't like line up really nicely. So like this would probably go like this way and like your thing's safe. Yeah. Yeah, that would be a cool spell to have back in the game. And then the other one would just be Anivia flies around with a storm around her, and then she has a revive. Again, a little iffy on that being a 4 cost spell. Maybe that's more appropriate as a 5 cost. But this is just like this is just for fun anyway. Like this isn't like I'm actually going to add these into the game. 'Cause I don't actually have a say in that, so I'm not really gonna worry about that. But I feel like that idea would be cool, and it would be pretty unique for Anivia. As a unique way to include her passive, and I think it is appropriate to the theme of Anivia. So it'd be a pretty interesting implementation into TFT. Next is Annie. Annie is like another pretty interesting one because she's like this isn't even like a league thing. This is a TFT thing. League I think does it correctly where Annie looks like a mage and she is a mage. But in TFT, Annie's very often a tank, which is like not really fitting for Annie. But I think the rationale, because they talk about it in like these videos, where like they just really like the spell and they just really want to reprint that spell onto like a 2 cost unit, so they keep reprinting tank 2 cost Annie, and like I understand that, but I feel like we can do better than that. Otherwise, okay, this was 1 cost, 4 cost. What was this? 2 cost, 2 cost. Yeah, that one they reprinted a lot. So she has not been a 3 cost and a 5 cost. Yeah. So we're missing a 3 and a 5 cost. Hmm. I feel like 5 cost would be easier to think of. I feel like 3 cost would be kind of hard. Because Annie's kit doesn't help very much. Her theme is pretty easy to work with, though, so I feel like you could just figure something out. So, like, thematically, Annie's just a little girl with fire powers. I feel like that alone is pretty easy to work with. There isn't that many other overlap with League. I mean, Brand is like a fire guy, but I feel like it's fine. You could kind of just give Annie just a random fire type ability, and it would be fine. Because her spells would be in League are a little hard to use in TFT, just because there's like, at least for this, for what I'm trying to do, I think for like one cost, like four cost, two cost, a little easy, or not a little easy, but like easier than the ones that are left. So her passive is like it's a stun, like it has four stacks, and then at four stacks your next ability stuns. In TFT, a little tricky to include, but I mean, it is manageable. I think they included it in her hero augments in sets, the hero augment sets in set 8, but I don't think they've done that since. Her Q is just a single target projectile. They've already kind of worked with that. Oh, was it Annie? It might have been. No, it didn't ramp. Annie herself upgraded. It wasn't the spell. I think I was thinking of Cassio. But anyways, this is like pretty simple, but I don't think is. I think given what's left, I don't think this would be that usable. W is a fire wave. Visually, it might work a bit better, but the main thing in that league is that its range is not very large at all. And I feel like if you were to increase its range, it'd be like a little weird. It'd like stretch it out. Or E is a shield. It has a little damage reflect. Gives move speed. I feel like, I mean, like this comment, like they used her E and her W, and then that's what they kept reprinting, which I mean it works, but I don't think that's like. I feel like it would be a little like uninteresting to do that again. And then her ult is just Tibbers, which there is a lot of things you can do with Tibbers, because it's like it's kind of like having your own champion, like within itself. Because Tibbers has his own lore. He's like a demon. Uh, there's like a lot of stuff with Tibbers, so you can kind of like just do things based on that. Because it also has like its own like theme. So like you can like really work with like a lot of that. He's like a demonic spirit embodied into a teddy bear, and that is like you can tie into like demon powers, and it's like animalistic nature, and like that alone it actually gives a lot to work with. But I feel like that doesn't really matter unless you were to do like an Annie and Tibers situation, where Tibers is like its own playable unit that does its own thing. I feel like if we're focusing on Annie specifically, we kind of have to just like keep that on the back burner. For 3 cost, I feel like there is some potential. I think you can stray away from the core kits and just kind of combine some stuff, like not really. So I feel like in a lot of like games and like a lot of like media where there's just like a fire character, it's always like a flamethrower type ability. I feel like you can kind of do that with Annie, or she just like it's kind of like a combination of I guess her Q and her W, where she just like is just flamethrowering around. I guess another similar example would be to like again, I keep talking about this one, but backline Swain and from the current sets kind of works like that. It's like a little bit of a flamethrower. So it would like be like a channel. It focuses on the primary target, so it's like AoE. I'm pretty sure there have been other flamethrower abilities within past sets, but I don't think of anything that come to mind. I think of like Lux from set 9, but I don't know if there's like better examples of what I'm thinking of. But like, basically, what I'm saying is, it's like a channel flamethrower. Just think about like Annie casting her Q, but like just like spamming it for like a short period of time. Like it's just a flamethrower, and it's like AOE. You can maybe make it burn or something. And I think for a 3 cost, that'd be pretty acceptable as an ability. And then for a 5 cost, I feel like at that point, either you have to get super creative with fire powers or you have to include tippers. So I feel like this could be where you just include tippers. Like you have a unique trait where you also gain a summonable tipper, or like not a summonable, maybe a placeable tippers. And then you make Annie do something, and then you also have a tippers. And that'd be like the five cost mechanic. So like, she just has a placeable tippers. Yeah. The other thing would maybe be to remake, because if I recall correctly, sets. Wait, where's set 1 Annie? Wasn't there set 1 Annie? Wasn't this also in set 1? Am I crazy? Because, I remember this. But, okay, it was... What were the elementalists? That's what I'm... Brand was the 4 cost. Uh... Lissandra was the 2 cost. I mean, was it Kennen that was the other... maybe. So maybe this was set 2. Oh. But I feel like I shouldn't have such vivid memories of this, considering how little I played this set. I don't know. But the other thing would be where like her spell could also just summon Tibbers, and it could like AoE stun, and Tibbers does his own thing. And then if Tibbers is currently alive, it just like I don't know, it makes like a thing around. Like it just does an AoE around Tibbers at the bonus damage, and it can like maybe heal him back up. That's another one that can work. I think a similar example to this would be like, I mean, I don't have the best examples, but I guess the direct reference I have, I'm gonna do this so it doesn't start heating my computer. Cessia AFK journey. Ability. Can I look for something that's like just a clip of... Okay, I'm going to go to Zebo because he's cool. And I'm going to mute, and I'm going to... Can I go to where he like is just playing? I can like highlight where she casts her spell. Oh, okay, she already cast her spell, but like, because she also has like a Tibbers summon. It's this thing, Mr. Carlisle. Yeah, so she's gonna cast her spell. So the way it works is like she drops the summon, it CCs around, and then when she recasts her ability, it AoEs around like where the thing already is again, and it heals it back up. And if he's dead, she just summons it again, and it does like the whole thing again. I feel like you could just do exactly that with Annie. Is that how this worked? I don't remember enough about this Annie. Cannot gain mana while Saber is active. I guess that could also be a balance lever you can include. That would be fair. I feel like it would be fine to just be able to cast again, and if Tyrus is already on the field, you just heal him and do like a little bit of AoE damage around him. And if he's not active on the field, then you can summon another Tyrus and do the whole thing. And you could just make it like a really high mana cost. Uh, an okay starting mana cost, but then like really high. So like it can be like a 160-ish type mana cost. With like maybe 80 or so starting mana. So you get the Cerberus on the field, but then like he needs to be living for a really long time for him to heal up and then do the thing again. Or you can just summon him again. I feel like that would work for Annie. Okay, wait, I don't have that much time. So, okay, the last one I want to talk about is Aoshin. He's a scrapped League of Legends concept who was added in the dragon sets as the electric dragon, or as the Tempest dragon. This was originally going to be a champion in League, but then it was scrapped. But he's one of the scrapped champions that like we got like things talked about, so that's how people know about him. So he's one of the more iconic like scrap champions, even though there's probably like a bunch that aren't known. But yeah, because of that, he was added into TFT, and that's how they came up with the name. Like that's how they already got the name. They had to be like a little bit creative and come up with these other dragon names, but this one already existed because it was already a thing that was going to be in League. So he's an electric dragon. He was a 5-cost dragon, or like the dragon equivalent of a 5-cost. And his ability, I don't know, he's like shoots out a bunch of. It works like Xerath from like, I guess, last set, except it's more projectiles and less damage. But it just launches the blast between a bunch of like enemies, and it does a lot of damage. So, but the thematic we have for Aoshin is that he's an electric dragon, probably a backliner, probably a thing. I'm only going to talk about one ability for him because he's not a champion that exists in League, and I feel like I don't want to spend a lot of time just exploring things that aren't in League. When TFT fundamentally is going to be a game based off of League, and Riot has stated that they're very unlikely to stray away for that for much more than like what's appropriate. So like obviously you have stuff like the dragon set where they had to come up with more dragons. You have the arcane set where they had to come up with kits for units that aren't in League, but like at its core it is supposed to be a League of Legends game. So Aoshin, I mean, Electric Dragon gives a lot. I mean, it's enough, at least for at least one ability, surely. And I have like a visual idea as to what I want, but I have no idea how to describe it. So, I'll just use him as a heart because like, so the idea I had was that it would be a dragon that like he shoots a lightning, and it projects like chain moves. What's a better targets? That's what the thing you know. So the way that this Aoshin would work, this would probably also be a 5-cost, maybe a 4-cost, but like this, I don't know, like it had to be one of those two maybe because the spell's a bit complicated in behavior. But the way it would work is it would shoot a lightning bolt at the current target, and then that bolt would bounce to like randomly to like a nearby target. It would work like Static Shiv, pretty much. Except each bounce is counted independently. So the way Static Shiv works is that it's all based on like whatever's just nearby. Actually, maybe I don't know how exactly the bounces work in Static Shiv. Maybe it's exactly the same. But the point is, yeah, it bounces to a nearby target and hits up to like 4 targets, let's say. And basically he would cast that 4 times. And that would be the spell. And each cast can target differently. So like let's say you have like I don't know. Like this is like what like random positioning, but like so like you're like this spell would it'd be like four separate lightning bolts. Each lightning bolt is like a static shift proc, but each static shift like lightning bolt can chain differently. So you'll always target the current targets, but when it randomly bounces, it's not necessarily going to hit the same targets again. So it's not like it's going to hit, like, let's say it paths just this way. It just was like, pow, boom, 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 boom. Or like, if it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not necessarily going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 again. It might go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, I don't know. I don't know. But like, it would basically, it can, but not necessarily. It is likely to change the secondary targets when it hits. It'll because it's going to be multiple lightning bolts, and each one is going to be like a static shiv. And I like the visual theme I have is that like the sky would like or the screen would darken a little bit, and make like like a really like intense thunder noise or like a lightning noise. Or I mean, thunder is the correct word, but yeah, like a really violent like shock. But yeah, and that's it in terms of simplicity. It's just a damaging ability. But so it's like single targets, like kind of, but like it has the large AOE component, and it'll always hit. Like you'll always have enough single target damage to like focus your one person, but then like whoever it bounces to is like it's random, based on like whatever it's like. It's just independently calculated like static shift procs kind of. And I like the lightning would also be like bigger and like more like visually like stimulating. But yeah, that's what that would be. I don't know if, like that would be like a 4 cost or like, I think it'd be either a 4 cost or a 5 cost maybe. You can maybe tune it either way. But that's kind of what I had as an idea for another electric dragon ability. So that would be my custom Ocean units for TFT. So we still have a couple but I think each of these have a lot. And also, I kind of have to go like soon, so I'm probably gonna call it there. I don't know if I'm gonna like if I'm just gonna make this like episode 1 and make the next one episode 2, or if I just do episode 1 part 2. I don't actually know how I'm gonna divide this yet. I would probably think about that more as I'm making the video. If it's even like comprehensible enough. But I mean, I don't know. For now, I did my part in recording, so hopefully everyone else does their parts in enjoying what they're watching. So yeah, I'm going to call it. I will pick up. I don't even know when I'm going to pick up. I might be able to tomorrow, but that's not like super likely. But I feel like as I want to at least get a little bit of momentum sooner rather than later. If I make I would want to get the video out kind of sooner so that if people are interested, more people can tune in, and it's going to be a bit more of a cooperative process. But for now, I don't actually I'm not going to worry about that. But the point is, I am a bit more motivated to work on this sooner rather than later, just to see what people think. And also, like, the only people that, like, if someone else, I mean, obviously the idea of making custom TFT videos isn't, like, something I can, like, claim or anything, so I don't care about that. Something, if something specifically makes this type of content and steals the exact idea, then I'm, like, that'll be a bit more obvious for me to acknowledge. And if Riot does it themselves, it's fine. But, like, I just would like to know. Like, I don't even care if I'm acknowledged. by them, like when they do it, I just would like to know that they did it. Be like, oh yeah, we like this ability. Like that's all kind of all I care about. Like if they say that they got this from me, I do not care at all. Unless I'm working for them, then in which case, I mean, yeah, but that's a separate thing. Yeah, I'm going to call it there. Yeah. So for those who are still here, I thank you for watching. I will hope to stream again promptly, but I don't actually know. So the best way to know would be to subscribe, to follow